My name's John Newson, also known as Gypsy John, and I'm the sole proprietor of Oxney motorcycles here in rural Kent. I started my business in 1986. I'd already been auto jumbling for a few years, and my first workshop was down on the Isle of Oxney, where I live about 10 minutes away from here. One or two workshops down on the Isle of Oxney, and then came here to this ex-cowshed 30 years ago and spent 3 months developing this building into a motorcycle workshop. A young lad turned up here, 16 years old, 30 years ago, to see if I had any work, which I didn't. And his father brought him back here 2 or 3 times. And I said, well, come in next Tuesday and you can clean the bikes up. And I said, but I ain't got a lot of money to pay you. So I paid him £2 an hour. And he just cleaned the bikes up. He wouldn't move them around. He had no confidence to do that. And he became known as Shiny. And now his parents and his wife all call him Shiny, and he's been here 2 days a week for 30 years. But now he's very good on the machines and the lathe, and he's the best fella you could have to work for you.
Where is he today then? Not his day?
Not his day today, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And the other 3 days a week he's a gardener.
Got it.
So this is my workbench here, and we mainly work on Vincent's here now. Well, I do, and then Shiny and Mad John, who comes in sometimes when we're very busy, a 70-year-old retired plumber, they work on the other bikes, Norton's, BSAs. We work on any machines, as long as they haven't got computers on them. So, you know, Japanese classics, American, European, mainly British, and I mainly work on the Vincent's. These are all our imperial nuts and bolts and pillar drill. This is my bench that I work on most of the time.
This is very tidy, John.
Yep, it's always tidy. We knew you were coming, but it's always this tidy. We sweep up the end of every day, not like a lot of other workshops. And everything has a place. We're busy all the time, but sometimes if I'm waiting for stuff for customers' bikes, this, that and the other, I'm building bikes for myself, and then they go home where I've got a little private collection. So this is a Vincent Black. Originally it was a Series D, and I bought it about 2 years ago from Stockport, just as a pile of bits really, cobbled up, a lot of it missing, a lot of it knackered. But I already had a plan to build a Black Lightning replica, so it didn't need lights or anything like that. And the parts that were missing, I mainly had most of them here. And there's a lot of nice parts on this. It's got a semi-tuned engine, polished and balanced crank, which Conway Motors do for me. Mark II cams, 34mm Mikuni carburetors, Lightning manifolds, and Lightning brakes, set up a replica Lightning brakes, aluminium brake plates on the front, which are quite nice. So I've been building this for about 18 months.
John, it's all your workshop is very minimal. Even in front of you on the desk there, on the bench, there's actually not much there.
No, not at the moment. There will be the end of this week when I'm putting a 1.3 Vincent V twin engine together. It's all prepared. I'm just waiting to pick up the crankcases hopefully this week from Conway Motors, and which they had to do some machining on because it's 1300cc, so it has bigger liners for probably 90mm pistons. They'll be doing the machining on those, and then this will all be covered in that engine.
A lot of manuals up here?
Yeah, all of this is workshop manuals and parts catalogues. Top shelf I think is Japanese, all the rest is British, some European and American, but mainly British, which are a wealth of information there. Parts catalogues going back to the 1920s, and workshop manuals, which we refer to all the time. Here's our degreasing tank, cleaning up engine parts. Decent compressor there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my old 1959 Norman bicycle, because the Norman factory was in Ashford in Kent. And at the Great War weekend in Pickering in Yorkshire, I saw that on a stall and bought it for 50 quid and thought I'd bring it back to Kent. Little milling machine. We use a lot of stools. So there's a stool there for Shiny to sit on if he wants to do some milling on that machine. Our naked flame gas bottles here for brazing and a bit of welding sometimes. This is all Vincent spares, all good, usable, serviceable, original spares in here. And pigeonholed so I know how to get to them. Gearbox stuff, clutch stuff in there. All your rocker arms and rocker bearings. Tappet covers, etc. And I've built a lot of Norvins, a lot of featherbed specials I've built in the past, and I've built several Norvins more recently. So there's like a featherbed rolling chassis here, best part of one, ready for another project. This is the kitchen, the lovely clean fridge, and the lovely disgusting microwave, and little oven. These are all Vincent spares here.
You were telling me before about, I asked you about standardised barrels, didn't I?
Yes, you did. And answering your question, all these barrels, I mean, there's some unused, brand new barrels here, undersized, which you need boring out to standard. Some of these barrels are probably, they're on plus 20 or 40 to need relining. Don't normally go to plus 40, it gets a bit thin, the liner does then. But these are all interchangeable. They will fit comets, rapides, shadows and lightnings.
And also that piston there, just show us that, because I didn't know that.
Originally they was using specialoid pistons, but you can't get piston rings for these anymore, which is a shame.
Was this for the singles or the V-twins?
Either.
Yeah.
Yeah, because basically the singles, the comets, the top end, well, post-war, the top ends are the same as the V-twin top ends. But you can't get rings for those, so pistons now are normally Amiga. These are all little Vincent spares in here in case I need some brake cams. Yeah, this is my fabulous office over here. This is where the secretary works, which is me.
And you get cold as well because there's a heater right in your place.
Well, if I've got to spend a bit of time in the office, there's something there to keep me warmer. No computer here, no landline.
No landline?
No landline, just a mobile phone. Yeah, there's another Norton featherbed. Wide line.
Yep.
Ready for another project, maybe a Norvin, a single or a twin.
Yep.
Nice selection of carburetors here. These are all suitable for rapide or shadow. Pre-monoblocks.
The jetting on those, do you find you have to change the jetting much, or you use the...
But normally the standard jetting as per, workshop manual. But like on this black, these carburetors are guaranteed to leak. That's what Amel designed and manufactured the monoblocks around about 1954, 55, because these just leaked. And I got a brand new, you can get a brand new set of these in England, made in England, fabulous, beautiful carburetors. And I got a set on my Black Shadow at home, which I bought brand new some years ago, but they leak as well. So on that, I decided to put a set of McCuneys on it, which don't leak. Yeah, I had them on the shelf, so rather than spending a lot of money on a set of pre-monoblocks, I put these McCuneys on. Just modified a bit of rubber hose. But the good thing about this is that these are lightning manifolds, which are much longer than standard shadow or rapide manifolds. But the distance from the main jet needle to the centre of the inlet valve is the same on both carburetors. Okay, we move around here a little bit. Here we are, these pigeonholes here, all full of spares. Not Vincent, but just general spares that I don't take to... I used to auto jumble a lot. I used to do about 25 auto jumbles a year all over the country. And this workshop was just full of auto jumble, but I don't do so many now. And a lot of the auto jumble stock is in another building. But these are spares that I might be using. Now, this is a 1939 Vincent Comet Special replica. So they built the specials for TT racing. And but this is a genuine Vincent product, a 1939, called a Comet Special. So it has a rather unusual large tank, stainless steel. You don't see a lot of tanks this big. This is quite a unique tank, the size of it. It has a solid bronze cylinder head. And I bought this off of a Vincent man in Bexley Heath. in his early 80s. About 2 years ago, he'd had Vincent since 1961, I think. This is the last Vincent he had. He'd started the restoration in 2010, and he had 3 Series A comets. This is what you call a Series A. And he was going to restore all 3, give 1 to each son, keep this one himself. His sons weren't interested, so he sold those 2, and he lost interest. And this restoration had already started, but it was all in bits. The gearbox was restored, the cylinder head was restored, the oil pump was, but the engine was all in bits, and the rest of the bike was in large lumps. And he just wrapped it up, the wheels were all built with tyres on, and put it away in 2010. So I bought it off of him, and I was too busy, we had so much going on, so Mad John came in, retired plumber, already got his own collection of pre-war Triumphs, and he put this together. He came in 1 day a week and built the engine up and put it all together. So I'm really fond of this machine because it's a Series A, which are a little bit rarer than the post-war Vincents. Yeah, this is a rather interesting machine, probably the only one in the world. I started this in 2013 as a sort of board racer replica. And normally only working on it around Christmas when I'm not so busy, but it was last in here 2 years ago. And we got it on the rollers and it was sparking, then we put it away, and I just brought it back in here about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Thought we'd try and get it finished this year and running. So it's I had this vision of a board racer, a road legal one, and I went up north to Wexford, I think it was, in North Wales, and found an old-time auto jumbler up there and bought this frame off of him, which is probably 28 to 30 Triumph, maybe for a big single, not too sure. There's a Triumph frame and forks and rear stand. And I also bought the tank off of him, which we're not sure the origin of that. It's an early saddle tank, probably around about 1930 or something. And this is the petrol tank and that's the oil tank. We had to cut that in half and widen it to get over the frame and then weld it back together. The handlebars are Indian. Yeah, the tank has got this little toolbox or first aid box, which suggests it may be a military tank or a racing tank. Hand gear change on the gate there. The front hub is from a Watsonian sidecar, so there's no front brake. This machine was built to go, not to stop. And the back hub we think is Sunbeam or Norton, not too sure.
But it's registered as a Royal Enfield.
Well, yeah, it's registered as a Royal Enfield, 1939, because it has a Royal Enfield gearbox, you see, which is post-war. Now, the engine is interesting. The bottom end is 1941 Harley-Davidson WLA, which is standard as a side valve. But I've modified it to take overhead valve iron head Sportster top end. So it's 1000cc, and it has early Sportster P-grind camshafts in it, which will make it go, hopefully, as fast as a Sportster rather than a WLA. The WLAs originally had a distributor and a battery, but I've done away with all of that, and I fitted a PAL magneto, which I had to modify to run off the drive gear on the camshaft. As you can see, nice noisy exhaust system, be plenty of flames coming out of there. And I'm calling it the Harley Tri-Field. That's Harley-Davidson Triumph Royal Enfield. Homemade oil filter there. The one and only time I rode my Black Shadow up to Verrill's to visit them, and I said, you know, this was 10 years ago or something, I needed a saddle for it, and he opened the drawer and there was about 20 old vintage saddles in there, so bought that for about 15 quid, I think. Yeah, but this is ready to get on the rollers, and it's got good sparks, get the oil pressure up, and then we're ready to run it. I'm just going to mention these benches. With this bench, I'm very fond of, because this belonged to Ned Kelly, who rode the Wall of Death with the Motordrome Wall of Death, Alan Ford's Wall of Death. And Ned Kelly was a great friend of mine from Pontypridd in South Wales, and he died a few years ago. And I bought a lot of stock from his garage, some motorbikes and some spares. And amongst it was this bench, which his brother Ian bought for Ned's 50th birthday. So I'm really fond of that bench. This is a customer's machine, a fairly new customer. It's a 1947 Motor Guzzi Falcone. Lovely original patina. I'm quite confident that it's all genuine and unmolested, the original paintwork, etc. Didn't want it restored, just wanted it up and running and recommissioned with some sort of rear seat for his wife. So we made this bum pad here. And this is done. This is now running and good oil pressure. All the lights are working, etc. And original battery there, but we gutted it, of course, and put a modern battery inside, just keeping all its original patina.
Another replica up there?
Another Black Lightning replica. This belongs to a customer of ours called Loz. He bought a Rapide as a donor bike off of his good friend who was an Octarian, and been after the bike for years, just laid up and, you know, neglected, I suppose. Had a sidecar on it most of its life. And eventually, Loz's mate decided to sell it to Loz. And Loz asked me if I would build a Black Lightning replica for him. So that's another one, which will be finished by this spring, this summer. Okay, this is my 1948 Ford Pilot, 3.6 V8 side valve. I've had this some years, and I use this to come to work in sometimes. I'm very fond of it. It's called Stanley, after Stan Laurel, one of my heroes. And only the last couple of years we completely restored the engine. It's a brand new engine in there now, but standard spec, V8 side valve, and we built the engine in the workshop in there. Yep, that's 1948. And then my van here that I use for carting bikes around with. So in here, we call this the wing shed because it's like a wing on the side of the barn. Okay, in here, we do a lot of the restoration work on stuff like this is where the crankcases go, the Vincent crankcases. They're too big to go in my little gas oven in the workshop. So this is really useful. It was put out for scrap, saying that the top rings weren't working. So it was great. I picked it up, and electric oven, so crankcases going there when we're putting new bearings in. This is our blast cabinet, a Gypsy blast cabinet, which is good for glass bead blasting. We mainly do a lot of the hard blasting, like frames, etc. I farm out to a local blaster, but we can do our own cylinder heads in here and smaller parts, normally in glass bead for the alley. And this is a three-phase polishing mop and wire mop, so we do our own polishing in here on the alley with a back stand just here. And this is where Shani does the painting. So we paint most of our own parts in here. Up here you can see a block and tackle. So we have a Vincent V twin engine hanging off of that, all masked up, and painting 2-pack gloss black. Okay, in here is where I keep a lot of the auto jumble and rubbishy stuff. We call that the rat barn because there's more rats in there than there are motorbike parts. Now in here, in this container, are motorbikes that are waiting to be worked on. Okay, this is a customer's Vincent Comet, Series C, 500cc, single cylinder. It's from the West Country, and we had to do a lot of work on this, recommission it, and rebore, new piston, etc. That's more or less done, ready to go back. Here we have the best part of Prometheus, one of John Rennick's racing outfits. Here's the UFM upper frame member. This is the subframe that John made himself because we did a lot of work on this machine, got it running last year for the Heritage Sprint at Betshanger, and unfortunately on the second run the lay shaft bearing let go and destroyed the crankcases. So only this week I should be picking up a new set of crankcases from Conway's and restore the engine and put it back in, put the sidecar back on. And that belongs to a very good customer of ours who lives in Canada, who's got several John Rennick outfits and machines. He also owns this, which is an interesting Norvin. This is the Bonneville Viscount Mark II. So Tom Somerton in 1959-1960 from Stafford, he built a Norvin and called it the Viscount. And it didn't look like this. It was like a touring bike with a great big hideous fiberglass petrol tank, which also covered the oil tank. He went into light production. He made about 6, but they were very expensive. They was over £400. And Peter Ross bought the second Somerton Viscount and owned it for many years, and then he died, and his widow sold that Viscount to Eric Patterson, good friend of mine, who used to own Kempton Park Auto Jumble. So Eric bought the Somerton Viscount, recommissioned it, used it, went up the Ace Calf, and then he decided he wanted to race it at Bonneville. So he commissioned Mick Cook Racing in Bicester, Oxfordshire, to turn it into a speed machine, a land record breaker. And Eric took it to Bonneville and he raced it and he got 2 world records. And then Eric had some health issues and he decided not to go back to Bonneville, put the Bonneville Viscount into auction. And our customer, our client, James in Canada, he bought it and brought it here straight away and decided he wanted to have it put back as the Somerton Viscount, 1959-1960 spec, which was a shame because it was a historic Norvin that had been raced at Bonneville. But it was also a shame that Eric had converted the Somerton Viscount into a racer. Nevertheless, they decided to go ahead, so we restored the Bonneville Viscount back to the original Somerton spec. And that's now in James's collection. But then he said, could you build me, with all the parts left over, a Bonneville Viscount Mark II? So we had a brand new frame made by a local frame maker, fabulous frame maker called Terry Mead, not far from here in Kent. He made a Manx frame. The crankcases, they had gone to Bonneville as spares. And all the parts that we took out of the Bonneville Viscount, we put into this engine, the 5-speed Quaife gearbox, etc., etc. So most of this has been to Bonneville, but it's going to be called the Bonneville Viscount Mark II. We've just got to get it on the rollers and get the oil pressure up and check the sparks. It has a 4-plug head. It's got a lot of trick stuff in that engine. So here we have the remains of Prometheus crankcases. Prometheus is one of John Rennick's racing bikes. He built it for road racing and was very successful on it. And Ed the plumber, his mate, used to sit in the sidecar. And one time Ed said to him, why don't you take it sprinting? So he decided to take the Brighton Speed Trials and said that was great. You know, I didn't have to go around bends or anything. And really enjoyed it, but he said it's not for a speed trials machine, it's a circuit racer. So he built another outfit, especially for Brighton Speed Trials, called Epimetheus, which was 1.6, 1600cc. It ran on nitro oxide. It was good for over 160 miles an hour. And when my client James bought that machine from Bonham's Auctions in Stafford, it came straight here, and with the help of Ed the plumber, we got it recommissioned, we got it running, and we took it to the Heritage Sprint at Betshanger near Deal in Kent the year before last. And we didn't race it, but we demonstrated it because it was a bit fierce for that 8th mile track. That was Epimetheus. Anyway, Prometheus, which also belongs to James, that came here straight from auction. And we recommissioned that. We got that running, again with the help of Ed, who knew it very well because he helped build it. And that went to the Heritage Sprint at Betshanger last year. And our good friend Robert Dean, who looks after James's machines in this country, he rode it. Never ridden a sidecar before, never done a sprint before. He's passenger, my mate Bullock. He'd never been in a sidecar before on a sprint. So it's quite an exciting event. Anyway, the first run didn't go too bad. The second run, the gearbox locked up in second gear and couldn't get it out of second, so we retired the machine. And it came back here. And the reason it had locked up in second gear is because the crank cases where the gearbox had blown up and had to be stripped right down. In fact, the gearbox sprocket nut hadn't come loose, it had come off completely, which probably gave it loads of end float, and the gearbox would have been floating around inside the crankcases. But there have been so many repairs on the crankcases in the past, because probably when it was racing it, you know, it'd blow up, he'd get it fixed, race it again, blow up, get it fixed, race it again. It had probably been welded up so many times that the crankcases became distorted, and maybe the lay shaft wasn't running true. And the major repair around the lay shaft bearing let go and ripped out of the crankcases, flew around the gearbox. Quaife 5-speed gearbox, which are generally known to be indestructible. I've got a good friend who's retired now from Quaife, but he worked there for many years, and he got out all the records and showed me that hundreds of these gearboxes have been sold all over the world since 2010, I think it was, commissioned by John Surtees, Quaife, to make these 5-speed gearboxes for Vincent V twin engines. And they had sold hundreds of these gearboxes all over the world, but very few spares because they were so reliable. But not when you got a load of lay shaft bearing flying around. So if you come a bit closer, Alex, you'll see the damage it done. It ripped this major lump of repair, aluminium repair, out of there. That was flying around the gearbox. Here's the rest of the shrapnel of the lay shaft. And I took these to Conway's, had a word with Steve there, said, what do you think? And he said, well, basically, you know, they've been welded up so many times. So we decided to source a new set of crankcases, which, as I said earlier, we're hoping to pick up this week so we can start the engine restoration for Prometheus. Here's the gearbox. You'll see how it completely destroyed fifth and fourth gear on both shafts. Ripped those to pieces, took all the teeth off. Okay, so thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed seeing our old school workshop where we've built hundreds and hundreds of machines, and hope to do so so that I can supersede Val Onslow and be Britain's oldest working man at my bench when I'm over 100 years old. And Shiny might be still here, he'll be getting on for 80 by then. And if you enjoyed watching this, maybe you'd like to see part 2, when Alex is going to bring his camera down to my sort of small private collection, small private museum at home, where I keep my own machines and 200 toy motorbikes and Petrolina, and that'll be in part 2. Thanks for watching.